How's it going, you guys? This is going to be a bit of a unique episode. So today, basically, in this video, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a breakdown of the first episode of The Eminence in Shadow. I was rewatching this series because I wanted to do an analysis on it. But I gotta say, if any of you guys are considering doing any writing or anything like that for any TV shows, books, or anything like that, or specifically if you're gonna do any episodes on TV shows, I want to show you the importance of how good and how important a first episode is. Specifically, I'm sure all of you guys have heard this before, but your hook to a story, how important that is and why it's so significant. Because I am genuinely pissed off right now. I have never been this pissed off because I've been watching so much Bleach, so much of so many different shows recently, that it just genuinely pisses me off the fact that there is so much wasted potential in first episodes. Let me show you specifically what I'm talking about, because it genuinely pisses me off that there is so much wasted potential, and yet we get shows like The Eminence in Shadow, that are fucking terrible shows that have no right to be as good as they are still able to pull off amazing shit like this. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, because this genuinely pisses me off how there is a fact that The Eminence in Shadow is so much better than it has any fucking right to be. I'm talking animes that have like triple the budget, or like the talent pool is just so much better in different shows and in different TV shows, different movies, different everything, bro. Like, it has no right being this good, and yet this is so much better than mostly like everything I've seen, and it just genuinely pisses me off that I have to keep watching this crap and people keep saying it's good, and it just pisses me off because that's not what it is, bro. It's not good. It's genuinely not good. I can tell you when a show is good based off of the first episode or not. However, I can guarantee you that there will be times when someone stumbles upon something that is fantastic. And ironically enough, this show, by trying to do something completely different that no one has ever done before, ironically stumbled onto something amazing. I can't stress the importance enough. Like, I cannot stress it enough how important it is for a show to have a good first episode. Look, I really don't like The Eminence in Shadow. I think it's a garbage show, and I think it's a garbage story. And yet this first episode has no right to be as good as it is. I will show you what exactly I am talking about. So, as all of you guys know, the first episode of Eminence in Shadow begins. And we first get introduced to this girl. For whatever reason, we get to see a panty shop, which, whatever. But we get introduced with her. Which is ironic, because we'll never see her again. It's almost like a fucking waste. Which is terrible for the fucking story, but whatever. Doesn't matter. It's used, if you were only looking at the first episode and the importance of it, or we're only looking at the first episode of how good it is, this is a pretty good way of introducing the main character. Basically what you do is you don't actually introduce us to the main character just yet. You introduce us to the main character through side characters. That is a beautiful narrative tool that you can use to introduce main characters. Similarly, it was used in John Wick. To great effect, might I add. we get to see like the morning. We get to see what kind of attitude she's gonna have, how she's gonna start off her day. You kind of get like it kind of blocks off her face. You can tell she's not happy with with something. We don't really understand what. She gets ready for her day. She's about to leave. She gets hit with the flashback of fear. She is rattled from her past. We get just those brief scenes allow us to have an understanding of her thought process and her mentality. Just off of those few scenes. Look how simple that was. Simple, quick, and we understood right away. We get her walking through the courtyard. We get to like through the entrance. We get to see her, how she interacts with other people. They don't really show her like the other people's faces because they're not important. They're not significant to the story. And just like that, we're introduced to someone who we don't know who that is. And if you actually notice, I'll go back a little bit. Listen to his bag. Did you hear that sound? Did you hear that sound? I'll play it again. Hear that sound. Did you hear that? That metal clang noise? Guess what he has in there, bro? Guess what he has in there? This scene, the reason why this scene is so spectacular and why I like this scene so much is because what it does is something entirely unique. It actually grabs aspects from John Wick, the introduction to John Wick, where everyone else is talking about John Wick without him even doing anything. It adds so much more value to the story because what happens is that we start having a deep understanding of what kind of the way the world looks at the main character. And the fact that we get introduced to the main character through a side character is so much better. And if any of you guys have read the light novels, I can tell you, this is not the way this is played out, bro. The way it's set up here is so much better. I don't know who the writers are of this story, but they did something fantastic with this first episode. Let us continue. Watch how they talk. Watch how they talk about him. I'll go back a little bit. Watch how they talk about him. 成績は中の下、運動も中の下、見た目はごくごく平凡。おはよう、西村さん。影野くん。何かな、西村さん。私の名前、西村じゃないんだけど。え？And did you hear his shoes? It's a minor detail that probably most of you guys missed on the first watch. But you hear that slam noise from his shoes? That wasn't him slamming his shoes onto this cubby. No. His shoes are weighted, bro. Those are weighted shoes. That's why they made that noise. That's what that was. 私の名前西村じゃないんだけど。え？西村じゃないんだ。あれ？違った？うん。And there you go. Did you see that? Did you see his wrist? I'll go back again. Look at his wrist. You see that? Those are weights, bro. He's wearing weights. So, while we get an introduction to a main character, while we get like an introduction to a main character, while we get some world building around the main character, we are also seeing how other characters interact with him, bro. Basically, all of this, what's happening, is basically build up, showing us what kind of person the main character is. They are doing multiple things at the same exact time. This is what I'm talking about, bro. This is what I'm talking about. If you want to have a good show, if you want to have a good story, do multiple things at the exact same time. And I'm talking important things at the same time. I'm not saying, look, if you're going to have a character who, say, is going to fight someone in the future, start setting up little bits and pieces here and there throughout the story. And while you're presenting a scene, say you're this guy is walking to the store, okay, but he's going to fight someone at the store. Say by pure chance he happens to find I don't know, a screw on the floor or something, and he grabs it and he puts it in his pocket. And now that it's in his pocket, he continues on moving forward. And then later on, when he has a fight, the guy kicks him in his pocket where the screw was, and that screw ends up either going into his leg or into the guy's foot. And that's because he accidentally set it up. That's called a setup for something else. Showing this, the way they're talking about him, all of these aspects are significant. It's a shame none of that was used. Like I said, shitty writing. However, it is a good first episode, bro. This is what I'm talking about. This puts it on par with so many other shows that it genuinely pisses me off that no other shows have a tendency to do this, bro. Like, I can count on one hand the amount of shows with one hand I can count the amount of shows that do this kind of shit. And literally on the first episode, bro. That is not good. That is not good at all. Let us continue.
私の名前は。
待って、思い出した。君は一応ネームドキャラクターだったよね。
ネームド？
こっちの話。僕は重要人物の名前はしっかり覚えてるんだけど、最近寝不足でうっかりしてたみたいだ。
Did you see that? Did you see that? You get a view of his mentality. You get to see the way he looks at people.
同じクラス、隣の席になってもう3ヶ月よ、3ヶ月。いいよ。
You get thoughts from other characters, bro. That is so good. All of that is so good.
誰にでも間違いはあるから。
ごめんね。西谷さん。
西谷じゃねえよ。西野よ。
え？
私は西野茜。
And then we get a view from her perspective of how she views him, and interactions that you can tell are fairly common for him. And there you go. Besides that being humor, bro, that is so good. Because you can tell he genuinely does not give a shit. He genuinely does not give a shit, bro. And it shows, bro. It shows. That is good writing right there. It adds a little bit of humor so it's easily digestible. And then at the same time, it shows us a glimpse of his personality. All of this was one single scene. This is the end of the scene. But all of that walking through the courtyard, that her starting of her day, everything is literally slow paced and gradually growing and changing in how her day progresses. This is literally perfect. It's set up in the perfect way to be able to be set up in this fashion. So her day starts, she starts off, she gets ready for school, takes a shower, puts on her shoes, gets in her car, arrives at school, says hi to everybody. And then we get in this interaction with her. All of that was perfectly set up in one single day. So we get a preview of what her morning routine is like, what it must be like, what happened, how she interacts with other characters, how the main character interacts with other characters, what the usual, and how the reason why her talking to other students is so significant, by the way, is because we get to see the difference and the shift in between the main character and other side characters, and how their side characters talk to her. With Nishino, I think, whatever her name is, But you get the idea. Oh, it is right there. It's on screen. Right.
何より許せなかったのはあいつが名前を間違えることじゃない。あいつは私を見ていない。視線を向けてくることはあるけど、いつも遠い目でどこか違う場所を見ている。
And we actually get a chance to view that. They showed us what his eyes were like when we got that blank stare. We got an idea of what he looks like at other people and his blank stare that he has, but we weren't sure if that was specifically if that was just something that we get to see as the viewer, or if anyone else sees that. But then now that we see this, and she's talking about it, she acknowledges the fact that this is happening. That means that she can see it too, and other characters can see that blank stare that he has. That means that he does that to everybody, bro. That means it's actually a phenomenon that occurs in their world, that that us, the viewer, and them in the show, the characters can see themselves occurring in real time. That's why that's significant.
それに気づいたとき、完全に嫌いになった。
And then we get to see, and then we get to see her what her stance is on him. And again, more interactions with a bunch of side characters that we'll never see again that aren't important to the story. And again, we get to see his interactions in the everyday world. There you go. If you missed it the first time, there you go. You can see his weights right there on his wrist. And then, just to finalize it, make sure you got the point. There you go. Just to assure you that you got the idea. And if you think, oh, maybe this guy is just wasting everyone's time, maybe he's not. I doubt that he actually, cares about anything. You'll see what I'm talking about. And then now we get a breakdown of what her trauma is.
あの事件があってから私は仮面をかぶるようになった。
各生物の限界。More power.
And we start getting an idea of what his mentality is. Look, I get that his mentality is like basically the 8th grader syndrome, whatever. Basically, we start getting an idea of his mentality through that. Basically what he's saying is, I need more power. I mean, it could, bad English, and it could have been made so much better without being absolute cringe, but still, you get the idea. It comes across. That is good writing right there, where they start showing us, alright, well, this guy is studying. He spends his time at lunch reading and, studying.
じゃあ、学園祭のアンケートの集計は。先生、私が。あら、でも西野さんは今から補習よ。
And again, we get more interactions with her and the rest of the world. And we get to see how the main character interacts with the rest of the world.
隣のあなたにお願いね。
はい。
And how she ignores him.
私は教師に嫌われないように優等生であり、生徒に嫌われないよう
We get a view more into her mentality.
誰からも憎まれないよう立ち回ってきた。
All of this starts cultivating her character. The main character. All of that starts cultivating and changing the aspect of the story, making it so much better than what it has any right to be. We're 5 minutes in. I have a firm grasp of her personality. I have a firm grasp of his personality. I may not have a lot of an idea of the world building around this story, at least not yet. However, I am beginning to understand what kind of story they're telling. And that That is what makes it good. Unfortunately, none of that. The story that they're telling in the first episode has nothing to do with the actual story itself, but the point is still valid. That is how, if you were trying to write the story based off what that first episode is, it would be perfect. And the story, I can guarantee you, I would rank this show so fucking high on my list that honestly, just watch what happens from here. And first of all, I gotta say, I love Beethoven. So, hearing this song and the main character actually playing it himself, I love how it actually like sets the tone for the rest of the episode and how amazing it is. Like I said, storytelling through music. That's what I love about fucking shows and movies. How you can do shit like this and set the tone. This guy that's been working so hard is practicing the piano. We don't know why, but he's practicing a piano. And unfortunately, in the show, I don't think we'll ever find out exactly why. I think actually in the current episodes, they start explaining why. But in the light novels, we actually get an idea of why he practices the piano. And from there, we get a cut. Basically, we get flashes through what's happening in the world and what is occurring, basically setting up the story. And we get the time changing as he's playing, as he leaves, like after he's done practicing. Her calling the driver, her having to walk over there. He goes onto the roof. As to why he was following her, unfortunately, we don't get any of that because this is not the story that we're telling. But still. Now we know her name already because she introduced herself several times. I mean, you could argue this is a bit of a hiccup right there. As to why he's following her, we don't actually get an idea of why. So there's not really a whole bunch. I mean, you could make an argument that he saw them following her, so he just decided to tag along, make sure she was fine. That is a flaw in the story, unfortunately. I mean, in the first episode, but I mean, you could make an argument for them having done this, that it was going to be explained in the second episode, but we never get an explanation, so it doesn't really matter, because, like I said, shitty writing. Whole nother problem. However, that being said, it's literally set up perfectly for it. All of this, I don't really have a problem with it. Especially because he's set up to be like someone like Batman or something. Or the Eminence in Shadow, if you will. All of this I don't have a problem with, because you could say, oh, it's just a generic goons, why does it matter, you know, blah blah blah. Look, I get it, it's fine, they're generic goons, bro. Honestly, if they it works just fine, because we have them as introduction for the main character. All of this I can kind of just wave my hand, just like be like, all right, fine, it's acceptable. It may not be like the best writing, but it's acceptable because it's good. Like you can use generic characters like to make a point in the story, bro. There's nothing wrong with that. You can use generic characters. You don't have to meet every single character and flesh out every single character in this show. If you did, bro, you would spend ages, and it would be an endless string of like going into like the backstory of characters. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that like any long format shows have, because they just have so much time. It almost feels like they don't know what to do with that time. So they start fleshing out random characters and like random aspects of the story that mean absolutely nothing and have no importance to the story whatsoever. So it's absolutely frustrating to me whenever I see something like this. When I see something like that. So when I see something like this, I'm just like, okay, fine. I'm okay with it. I don't have an issue with it. They're generic goons. That's fine. It's acceptable. This is just a quick like introduction scene. These are throwaway villains. You could say later on that these guys were hired by somebody else. And even what you could have done even more, like if you actually wanted to loop this back around and actually show how wicked the main character's mentality would be. Like if you actually wanted to do something like that, you could set it up. So basically so the main character tipped off these guys. Basically he tipped them off and telling them, hey, you guys should kidnap Nishino, whatever her fucking name is. Basically he tipped them off, setting it up so that way he knew that she was going to be abducted. And then we get that evil smile, and that evil smile now makes sense. Because he was like, it's all going perfectly to my plan. Now it is the perfect time I can show up as the Eminence in shadow. And then he could, and then I'll show you what exactly I mean.
つうのは表向きの話。お前の親父、結構恨みを買ってるみたいな。
All of this is very generic. Unfortunately, most of this is just wasted time. We get to see a bit of the introduction of the main character, how he does things. Honestly, if they would have done this a little bit quicker, like not even taking this much time, like him undressing and stuff like that, taking off the weights. Again, if you missed it the first time, there you go. Now we get confirmation those were weights. And we get to see his mask. We get to see his weapons and everything. And there we get to see, like, and then we get to see, like, the symbolism of the moon, like, almost like he's smiling. Like the main character is smiling. Honestly, I don't really have a problem with, like, this slow pace of that. But that's, I mean, it's completely, a little slow paced, but I mean, it's fine. I'm not a big fan of it, but I mean, it works just fine as an introduction. It could have been done a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient, but it's, like I said, it's fine. It's acceptable. But it's still good. That's what I'm saying. The needle's still pointing to being good. Like I said, all of this I don't have a problem with. Basically, like, oh, she's in trouble. She's probably about to get raped. That's the whole idea, basically. We get to learn a little bit about her past. We get to see how he got up to the roof, like the slow progression.
俺か俺はただのスタイリッシュ暴漢スレイヤーだ。
スタイリッシュ暴漢スレイヤーすかしてんじゃねえさがれ。
And this is where I start having a little bit of an issue with this show, but I mean, fine, good enough. That's fine. I don't really have a problem with it. Like, it's not great. So if they really wanted to make a good character here, it's pretty simple what you could have done. It's very simple, actually. Don't have the main character talk. Just simple as that. You already know, bro. Like, you want him to be a badass. So let him be a badass. But let him be a quiet badass. Specifically, when he's, like, acting as the Eminence in Shadow. He's a quiet guy. He doesn't talk much. Why would he care, bro? He's about to beat the shit out of these guys. This is what I'm talking about. I get it. I get why they made him talk. Was not a good idea. Maybe we just keep him quiet. Maybe he just takes out his weapons and immediately starts attacking. Like, wasted movements, all that stuff. Just let him be quiet, bro. Let the action speak for itself.
Stylish 傍観スレイヤー。軍から弾かれて以来、俺は退屈してたんだ。造作もない小娘の誘拐。
All of this is acceptable. We've seen this in action movies a bunch of times. Like the big guy, the big, like tough muscle guy is against like the main protagonist, and they have to fight. All of that is completely acceptable. It's like it's not perfect, but it works. We've seen it 100 times. We know how it works. We understand how it works. And then he fights because he's like, all right, I'll take you on then. Like I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with that. All of that we've seen 100 times. All of this is a good introduction. Just keep the main character quiet, bro. He doesn't have to talk all that much, honestly. Just let the action speak for itself. That's all you have to do. That's not that difficult. Just let the action speak for itself.
この国は平和すぎる。
なるほど、ちょうどいい。軍人とは一度戦ってみたかった。
歓迎するぜ。
And see, why are you talking? If you really wanted to have him talk and give an explanation, if you really wanted to have him talk and give an explanation, it's very simple what you do right there. It's all you do is just have him say, make him do like a checklist or something. You would save on runtime too, just by doing something like that. Just by saying, I follow him. It's like fighting military guy, check. Or just literally just have him thinking this in his head. And literally like, and just literally like what he said, like while he was talking, instead of making him talk, let us hear his thoughts. Let us hear the thoughts like, it's like, oh, so this is effective against guns. Oh, this is effective. It's like I want to see how well I can do against military people. Stuff like that. But don't let him speak it out loud, bro. Don't make him introduce himself. Just let him be a quiet but deadly, a guy. That's basically what he's going for. He's trying to be cool. He's trying to be badass. Like a dark, shadowy hero. That way, I don't understand how much better that, like, why they made that decision. It's so much easier just to do that instead. Just have him don't talk at all. It would be so much better. But, like I said, it's not perfect. It's not a perfect show. Far from it, but it's still very good, and it has no right to be this good. And see it. Did you see that quick flashback? That taste of blood, that was so quick, so fast of him, like during his time in the military. You can immediately see his motivations. It was quick, it was simple, and we understood it, and we got it. We figured out what kind of mentality that guy has. The efficiency is what I'm trying to explain.
持ち運びもしやすいし、職質されても言い訳できるかもしれない。そして何よりトンファーのように使うことができる。
そうか、確かにてめえは強い。だが大きな弱点がある。それは圧倒的な体格差だ。俺は頭さえ守ってればいいが、てめえは一発でも食らえば終わりだ。
道理だな。
Too much banter. Way too much banter. Just let the action speak for itself. You remember, you guys, again, going back to John Wick. How amazing are those gunfights? You get to see John Wick basically going ham. He grabs his gun, shoots one guy, turns around, blasts another guy, reloads, punches a guy, puts in a mag into the gun, shoots a guy again. And all of that, all the reason why that action has no talking, no exposition, is just pure action, is because it's storytelling. It's visual storytelling. You get to see the progression, how he's going through obstacles. Basically, what's going on is that they should be doing something similar here. If you actually wanted to make a perfect, like a perfect episode out of this, it wouldn't be that hard. But just a few alterations from in this episode, and you could have your perfect first episode. Of course, now you'd have to follow up with a perfect second, a perfect third, and a perfect fourth, and then you have a perfect show. But, again, that's very difficult to do. I would actually say it's incredibly difficult, because there has been thousands and thousands of stories told, and there's probably like maybe 3 shows that are perfect. And they're not even that long, because the longer a show is, typically the more of a failure the show is going to end up being. And the more failures you have, the more it hurts your story, stuff like that, and it starts gradually snowballing and kind of starts weakening the story overall. But that's a whole nother issue.
今の俺では元軍人一人に手こずる。これが現実だ。だったら少し本気を出すか。
See, if he would have just changed his stance from the beginning, right there, without any talking, without any exposition, we basically looks at his shoulder. All right, there's blood. Like, he literally just goes, and then switches stance. Now he's not. Now he's no longer holding him like bantas. Now he's holding him, like in his like swords, basically. Now that he's holding him like that, we realize, oh, he's serious now. And basically, what you do is just set it up. So now, like, we watched him go, like, basically fight in the beginning half of the fight. We watched him fight defensively. Now you swap out this. Now you swap it out. And now he starts fighting aggressively. We start to realize, oh, he's serious now. He's going for blood. And we watch him start, like, breaking his hand, or we start doing damage to the actual guy. That's how you do storytelling. It's very simple. It's very simple alterations like that change the aspect of the story just significantly. Doing small things like that just change it and make it so much better. See, right there. Keep out the talking. Literally just have him smack him like that and break his hand and with the blood spurting out like that. Literally just take away the dialogue and just all the blood right there in slow motion. It's so much better. But it's still good. I mean, it's this. Like I said, this first episode has no right to be as good as it is. But this is kind of what I'm talking about. Again, it's all this exposition, all this talking, unnecessary. Cut it. Cut. Just him walking towards him, the side, like, make him like. Basically, he would have not said a single word through all of that. Nothing. It would have been creepier for the villain, and us seeing it, you could just see his thoughts Like he looks over to his shoulder. He switches stance, and then he goes more aggressive. You kind of start getting it, like, it makes him come off as being extremely fucking dangerous. Basically letting the action speak for itself. And then we've realized, wait, this guy might not be the hero. All this is good. That's what I'm talking about, bro. If they would if he would have killed him right there, that would have been the complete, like, that would have been perfect right there. Absolutely perfect. Because at the very least, he caused some major brain damage. But if he would have killed him right there, it would have set it up to be like, oh, this guy is not a good guy. Like, this guy is fucking dangerous. Like, even more so than we thought originally. All of that is perfect, bro. It's literally like I'm watching fucking Batman, bro. But in their world. And then, right there, he could be sitting on the roof. And you could see him, like, taking off his mask and looking at his wound and then he'll say, "This is not acceptable. I'll never be the Eminence in shadow." And then we got a perfect understanding of his mentality. Like, you can just, like, him clicking his tongue, something like that, just something along those lines, and it would have been amazing. But this is still good. Honestly, this is still good. Like I said, this show has no right to be as good as it is, because look how close they came to actually being being a perfect episode, like a perfect first episode. Like, this is okay. Let me just explain to you, like, how close it actually came. Take away the rest of the story and just look at this first episode. Just look at it and assume that there's going to be more to this story just based off this one episode. I can guarantee you, you're thinking, oh my god, this is going to be like it basically turns it up to a 9 out of 10, bro. A 9 out of 10 is spectacular. It is so close to being a 10 out of 10. So, I'll tell you why it sets it up perfectly. We get an understanding of how all of that goes. We get basically, it would have been set up perfectly. I'll show as the episode progresses. I'll explain why it would have set it up perfectly. Everything would have tied together, and everything would have been perfect. So now this part, like, resolves itself and blah blah blah. All that's completely acceptable. And now we go back to her everyday interactions, almost like we just started almost right back at the beginning of the episode. Everything goes back to normal. She's still wearing her mask. But But now, something's a little bit different. Not everything is exactly the same. Not everything is as it once was.
おはよう影野くん。
おはよう西野さん。
はいはい西野じゃなくて名前を
That's what I'm talking about. Look how cool that... Like, look at that. It just made a full rotation. Right back to the beginning of the first episode. How amazing was that? Like, you don't... Dude, there's not that many episodes. Like, I can't think off the top of my head. This is a writing technique. Basically, what you do is that you grab a story and have it to have a parallel back to this, like the first episode. I'll tell you that there are not a lot of shows that do stuff like this because it is so hard to pull off correctly. But if done correctly, it can be a powerful tool for the story. Doing it like this, the way it's set up right now, it's perfect because what it does is that it puts her right back how it was before. Except this time, she notices that something's a little bit different. And the reason why this is, like, why that's significant, you'll see in a moment.
視線も私のことを見ていたような気がした。影野くんも私と同じように仮面をかぶって生活している。
She realizes, oh, something's a little different. She starts realizing something's off. She starts seeing something that she didn't see before. Her perspective has now changed because now she's lived through something that has altered her worldview.
なぜかそんな気がしたけど、今はもう確かめようがない。
And then she says something ominous like that. It's almost as if she knew. As if she knew that it was him. What would have been perfect, honestly, what would have been perfect right there is that they could have had one single, like, he could have said one single thing. What was missing from here in this scene is just have him say something similar to what he said while he was still wearing a mask, and just having her like, wait, what? Like, is he? There's no way, right? Like, having that, like, having that little bit of a connection start occurring, and then you play this scene. And then the credits roll. And again, the song plays. And you're just left with a, what the fuck? Like, it would have been perfect. Look at it. Look, dude, even right now, that was so good. That was so good. It loops right back around, sets it up. She figures out that he's that he was the guy, and then he's dead. You're just left with a what? Like, wait, what? Like, that feeling of just being left with a wait, what? Like, is so powerful. It is such a powerful tool. I'll tell you exactly how powerful it is. Look, I'm not a big fan of the Star Wars sequels. However, The Force Awakens, out of everything it did probably correctly, there was one single thing I would say that made it so memorable and so good and so powerful. It was the one simple thing that J.J. Abrams did right. And it was so powerful that it literally made so many people come back to watch what happened next. And that was literally put Rey and Luke on a cliff and leave it at a cliffhanger. This is how you write a cliffhanger. It literally leaves you with the moment of like, wait, what? Like, it literally leaves you with the moment of shock. That is how you do cliffhangers, bro. That is Thanos's... That's Thanos' snap, bro. Letting all of that sink in, and then you get the credits roll with Beethoven playing. That is what I'm talking about. That is how you do storytelling. It adds a mood. It adds a perspective to the story. And say you were only judging this based off of this, take away the end credit scene. Just judge it based off of this first section of the show. You know what this is telling me? I'll tell you exactly what this is telling me. Like what kind of story I'm thinking this is that I'm reading instead, or that I'm watching rather. I'm thinking, oh, this guy probably like faked his death because he was he recognized that she recognized him. So he did that to basically hide his identity. Obviously, this is not the kind of show it was. It's not a superhero show. It's not anything like that. But that would have been the perfect introduction to a Batman character, or to like just that type of superhero introduction. That, or anti-hero, whatever you want to call him. But that is how you do that. That is good writing. And doing it like that would have been perfect. Unfortunately, it's immediately underkilled by this end credit scene.
It's
not good. It's really not good. And unfortunately, this is unfortunately the weakest part of the episode.
ただ他の子供たちと違うのは、僕のそれは一時の熱病などでは決してなく、もっと深い心の底で燃え続け、いつまでも消えることなく僕を突き動かした。
Having this set up where it's kind of like that, I don't really have an issue like that. You can have the main character talk like this and like be introspective like this. It's not an issue, dude. Like, no one has a problem with the main characters doing that. However, if you're going to do something like that, it can't be set up that way. Specifically when it's going to be undermined by what's about to happen in the next part of the scene. But all of this can be like, it can be acceptable. But if you're going to write a story like that, you should not have like basically have like a silent protagonist, more or less. You can have moments like these, but you should not have him talk and like show his like thoughts as much as this is what I'm saying. You kind of want to have a little bit of a mystery around the main character, around how he interacts. Basically, you do want to have moments like this where he shows his mentality, but unfortunately this is a bit of the tell and don't show. It's not that good. It's better to show and don't tell. That was why it was so important to have him look at his wound and being like, oh, and then changing his stance. That's showing and not telling.
強くなるために必要なものは全力で習得した。学校では平凡を貫いた決して目立たない人畜無害なモブ A。しかしその裏では修行に全てを費やした。周りのみんなが成長して憧れていたヒーローの存在を忘れていっても、少しだけほんの少しだけセンチな気分になったりもしたけど。
I'll tell you exactly when you can have moments like these where he starts having like introduction, like where we start having like views on his mentalities and stuff, and like his mentality and stuff. You can have moments like this while he's basically having an opponent in front of him, someone who challenges his worldview. So he starts actually like explaining his worldview, and you get a better understanding of who he is as a person. That's when you can have moments like that. You know, you can have moments like that. It's not a big deal, but they have to be used with a purpose. And unfortunately, we don't actually get a purpose in this. And that's what makes this episode not as good as it could have been. And honestly, I take it back. It is not a 9 out of 10. It is more like a 8 out of 10, 7, 8 out of 10 I think is more accurate. But it's still very, very good. And this episode is still so much better than it has any right to be. But anyway, basically we get to see how he has an interest, like he's introspective about what his thoughts are, what he can do and what he can't, and about like how there's only certain, like there's limits to his power and what he's able to accomplish. That's why he explains all of that, and then we get an introduction to the new world and blah blah blah. Like I said, immediately undermined, but if you take if you only look at the first 17 minutes of the first episode, if you literally just look at the first 18 minutes, 19 minutes of the first episode, you literally have what's very close to being a 9 out of 10. Just take that into account and remove the rest of it, and you have a great introduction to a possibly amazing show and a great story. You can copy and paste this exact first episode and just do the alterations that I told you of, and then create a story around it, and you have an amazing story to tell just based off of that. That's my point. That's the point I'm making. Literally, you will have the like very close to be like having your first like perfect first episode. And that's what I'm talking about. That's how you write a first episode. That's how you do stuff like that. And that's why it's so important to have a good first episode. How did I know this show was going to be bad based off of the first episode? Because it immediately, everything correct that it did in this first episode is immediately undercut by shit fucking writing. When we get introduced to the new world, why didn't we get introduced to the new world in the first episode? That is the most important part of the show. You don't get to see any of that world ever fucking again until way later. And even then, you only get to see it maybe for like 2 episodes in the show. And that's it. You never get to see it again. Because it's not important. It doesn't matter. It's so stupid that we actually have to go back and we actually have to fucking think about this. Because it is so ridiculous. It just does not matter. But if you just look at the first 18 minutes of this episode, 17 minutes, something like that, you have very close to having a perfect episode. A perfect episode. And it is very difficult. I cannot stress enough the difficulty of having a perfect first episode. Obviously, I would have to rewatch it with the alterations and see how good the episode would have been. I cannot tell you if my ideas were perfect. Obviously, I have to rewatch it, analyze it, and critique it. But it would have gotten you a step closer. And based off of that, you would have had your perfect first episode. That is how important a first episode is. That is why you can tell how good or how bad a show is. And that's why it is so significant. Just basing it off this first episode, I can already tell you what's going to, how this show is going to turn out, if it's going to be good, if it's going to be bad, what kind of story it has to tell, stuff like that. That is how you know. Just viewing stuff like that, it literally changes your view on shows. How you interact with them, how you view them, how you think of the characters, how you think of their world. The reason why you can see and the reason why it was so bad not to introduce the world that he was in already, why that is such a terrible decision, is because it is not significant to the world whatsoever. That world that we were just in does not matter whatsoever to the plot. It does not matter whatsoever. That world could have gotten obliterated, and it would have mattered none. And that's my point. That is how I know stuff like that. That's what frustrates me when I see shit like that. When I see shit like that, that just immediately undermines it and cuts it, just genuinely pisses me off. I'm going to literally rewatch this first episode and pretend none of that ever mattered, just so I can think of new and creative ideas of how to use those perspectives and unique ideas that they had. I can guarantee you, just look at the first 17, 18 minutes of this show. You will have one of the best ways of doing writing in a show I have ever seen. I have not seen that good of writing in a long time. I can guarantee you. It puts it as a first episode, that writing, that level of writing is so far above anything I have seen in such a long time that it is actually, like, it is infuriating that this show has no right to being this good, and yet it manages to pull off one of the greatest feats of writing that I have ever seen in a first episode. That's how amazing it is. I don't think anyone understands how great and how phenomenal this first episode is in the first 17 minutes or 18 minutes of the episode. It is so significant and it is so important to the story. It single-handedly creates one of the best stories that never happened in the history of fucking anime. That is so significant. And no one is talking about this. And it genuinely pisses me off because this show has no right to being this good, and yet it somehow still manages to pull it off. Anyway, I'm losing my voice. So, yeah, that was my reaction and my analysis to the first episode of The Eminence in Shadow. Fucking shameful that we never got the story we deserved and the story that they were showing. Because I can tell you how phenomenal that story was. It was fucking fantastic, and it genuinely pisses me off that we will never get to see the story that we were promised in this first episode, but instead we got something completely else. It's completely different. That is a fucking shit show. And we could have gotten that. We could have gotten such a better show. I don't know who was responsible for the writing in that first episode. But I am telling you, whoever thought that up, whoever had that idea, stumbled onto genius by accident. And that is amazing to me. Because like I said, there is only a handful of shows in all of media that are that fucking good. Anyway, yeah. I'm done. That was it. Anyway, yeah. I'll see you guys later. That was it.